Good evening, class. So our topic is analysis of 2D jointed determinate structure using joint method. So we have here an example. So always check if the figure is determinate. So from m plus r is equal to 2j, we have 7 members. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 3 reactions. Vertical and horizontal here, tapos horizontal dito. And 2j, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 joints. So, equal sila. Therefore, it is determinate. So, we have here an example. Meron tayong figure. Then, we have the loads. And then, the dimensions. So, part 1, we will do joint, member, and displacement numbering. Let's take this as number 1. And then 2, 3, 4, and then 5. So, bibilugan ko yung mga joints. Okay? Next is member numbering. This is 1, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Sa member numbering naman, lalagyan ko ng box. Okay? Tapos, finally, sa displacement numbering, susundan natin yung joint numbering. Dito sa joint 1, meron siyang support sa vertical tsaka horizontal. So, restrained siya to move along horizontal and vertical. Okay, so, walang displacement. Pero dito sa joint 2, take note na frictionless yung joint na yan. Ibig sabihin, pwede siyang mag-move along X and Y or horizontal and vertical direction. So, lalagyan natin yan ng arrow. Okay? And also, the assumption here, the displacements o yung mga arrows is in the positive X and Y direction. Okay? So, let's take number 3. So again, walang support sa number 3. So it is free to move along horizontal and vertical. So positive X and positive Y. Ganon din sa next node. Node 4, free to move along X and Y again. Next is node 5. Dito naman, free to move along X lang. Okay? So, hindi siya pwedeng mag-move vertical kasi may vertical reaction tayo. Now, we will do displacement numbering. So, sa node 1, wala. Sa node 2, meron. So, let's take the horizontal as your P1. And then vertical as P2. Okay, tapos susunod sa number 2 is node 3. So we have P3, then P4. Susunod sa 3 is 4. We start with P5 and then vertical P6. Finally, sa node 5, we have P7. Ngayon, ang trick dito, always start with the horizontal followed by the vertical, So, like sa number 2, we have P1 horizontal, P2 vertical. Sa node 3, P3 horizontal, 4 is the vertical. Okay, so yan ang pattern natin. So, remember, ang assumption natin sa displacements, laging nasa positive direction yung arrow. Okay? Tapos, susundan mo yung node numbering. And then always start with the horizontal followed by the vertical. Isalin na rin natin yung member numbering dito. So this is 1, then 2. Ayan, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. May significance yung mga member numbering na yan together with the displacement numberings P1, P2 up to P7. Okay? Next is we have free body diagrams and equilibrium equations. So we always start with the first node followed by the second, third, so forth and so on. Sa node 1, free body of node 1 is wala since this is support. Okay? Pero ilagay pa rin natin, ano? Free body of node 1 is none. Dahil, take note na walang displacement sa joint 1. Walang displacement sa X, walang displacement sa Y. Now, let's go to joint 2. Dito, no? Drawing natin yung mga members. So, take note, meron tayong P1, and then we have P2, so that is the vertical, and then another assumption here is lahat ng forces is acting tension, ano? And forces are axial. So, let's take this as F1. Bakit naging 1 yan? Take note na this is element number 1, and then this is element 3. Okay? Kaya ito magiging F3. And then this is element 4. Ayan. No? So this will become now F4. Okay? But then we cannot perform summation forces vertical and horizontal here kasi si F3 resultant force yan, ano? We have to convert F3 into its components. So let's take this as 4/5 of F3. Tapos yung vertical naman, this will be 3/5 of F3. Okay? So, paano nakuha yung vertical component na 3/5 naging F3? So, remember na meron tayong triangle na 3, 4, 5. Okay? Yan yung given. Pero, paano kung naging 5 yan, ano? So, remember that hypotenuse is equal to 3 squared plus 4 squared. Okay, so that will give you 25. So, square root of 25 is simply 5. Kaya siya naging 5. Okay? Next, let us consider this as angle theta. Okay? Remember that sine of theta is equal to opposite 3 all over hypotenuse 5. Likewise, if this arrow is F3, okay, if this arrow is F3, and then this arrow, let's say Fy, then we can say that sine of theta is also equal to Fy all over F3. Ngayon, ang kailangan natin is yung Fy. So, from this, by cross multiplication, Fy becomes 3/5 of F3. Okay? Kaya, yan yung pagkuha niyang 3/5 of F3. Okay? Likewise, cosine of theta is equal to 4/5, no? And then, ito na ngayon yung Fx. Okay? Likewise, Fx becomes 4/5 of F3. So, that's how you got to this horizontal component. Okay? So, i-erase ko na ito ngayon. At least, alam nyo na kung paano kunin yung horizontal and vertical components. Next, we can now perform equilibrium equations. Summation forces horizontal is equal to 0. Taking rightwards as positive, okay? So, P1 plus 4/5 of F3 plus F4 is equal to 0. Ngayon, merong technique dito. Uunahin mo yung mga lower subscripts, okay? So, ang involved na mga horizontal forces passing at this joint 2, you have P1, F4, and then obviously the horizontal component of your F3, which is 4/5 F3. So, we start with the lowest subscript. We have P1, and positive siya kasi rightwards, followed by 4/5 of F3. Again, positive siya kasi going to the right, and finally you have F4, positive again, is equal to 0. Okay? Next is, i-isolate natin yung P. Okay? So, P1 is equal to, ilalabas na natin yung mga other forces. So, this becomes now negative 4/5 F3 minus F4. So, ito ang kailangan natin, no? Next is summation forces vertical equal to 0. So, all forces going up is positive. Then we start again with the lowest subscript. So, we have here negative F1, okay, since pababa siya, and then plus P2, since pataas siya naging positive. Susunod yung 3/5 F3, and that is negative, okay, is equal to 0. Okay, again, we start with the lowest subscript. So, F1, 2, and then 3/5 F3. And then, upwards is positive. Kaya si P2 positive. Yung F1 tsaka 3/5 F3 negative kasi pababa siya. Next, i-isolate natin si P forces. So, P2, dyan lang siya sa left. And all other forces, ililipat natin sa right. So, we have here F1 plus 3/5 F3. Okay, so yan ang ating kailangan. Next, we now go to node number 3. So, ito yung node number 3, which is this one. Remember sa node number 3, connected si member 4, member 5 and member 6. And then we have displacements P3 and P4. So, ayan siya, P3, P4. Ngayon, gawin natin na itong arrow, which is F4. As I've said before, lahat ng forces is in tension, meaning away from the node. And then, so this becomes now F4. Take note na yung subscript 4 pertains to the member number. So this becomes now F5. And then this is F6. But take note na si F6 is resultant force. So, i-convert natin siya sa kanyang components. The vertical component is 1 all over square root of 2 times F6. The horizontal is 1 all over square root of 2 F6. Paano nangyari yan? Okay, so, remember na yung dimensions ng ating figure ay this is 3 meters and then 3 meters. Tapos, this is square root of 18. So, let's say, sine of theta is, this is theta, 3 all over square root of 18. You can round this to 1 all over square root of 2. Okay, so 1 all over square root of 2. So, yan yung reason bakit naging 1 all over square root of 2. Okay? Now, let's perform summation forces horizontal equal to 0, taking rightwards as positive. So, we start with the lowest subscript. We have 3. Okay? P3 minus F4. And then we have plus 1 all over square root of 2 F6 is equal to 0. Okay, so wala na. 3, 4, and then F6. We maintain P3, your P forces on your left. Tapos, yung F forces sa right. So, P3, this becomes now F4 minus 1 over square root of 2 F6. So, yan ang kailangan natin. Next is summation forces vertical is equal to 0. So, ang kailangan natin dyan, you have P4, F5, and then F6. So, taking upwards as positive. Okay? So, we have P4 minus F5, since pababa siya, minus 1 all over square root of 2F6 is equal to 0. We isolate your P forces on your left, and then your F forces on your right. So, this becomes now F5 plus 1 all over square root of 2F6. Yan ang kailangan natin. So, these two equations, summation forces horizontal, summation forces vertical, are the main reasons why this is called joint method. Lahat ng mga forces na kinonsider natin, horizontal and vertical, are passing through the same joint. Okay? So, kaya tinawag na joint method. And then next, we go to joint 4. So, drawing natin si 4. Remember na meron tayong P5. Tapos, merong P6. Tapos, this now becomes F2. Okay? So, dito tayo sa joint 4, yung force na yan, magiging F2. Remember na yung subscript 2 pertains to your member numbering. Next is, this should be on the other side. Okay? Yan. So this is P6. Dahil meron tayong diagonal force dyan, which is F3. And then we have vertical dyan na F sub 5. And then we have here F7. Okay? Next is, i-convert natin to each component, which happens to be, nasolve na natin yan kanina, no? Sa components ng F3. So this is 3/5 of F3, and then yung horizontal becomes 4/5 of F3. So summation forces horizontal is equal to 0. So unahin natin si F2. Okay, so minus F2 followed by F3 minus 4/5 of F3, and then we have P5 positive kasi rightward siya, plus F7 is equal to 0. Okay, next is, i-isolate natin yung P forces. P5 is equal to, yung negative magiging positive kasi nilabas natin siya, no? F2 plus 4/5 of F3 plus F7. Oops, this should be minus kasi from positive, nilabas natin, naging negative F7. Okay, so, yan ang ating kailangan. Followed by summation forces vertical equal to 0. So, mauna si F3. Dalawa lang, no? So, 3/5 F3 tsaka si P6. So, this is 3/5 F3 tsaka si F5, no? Plus F5 plus P6 is equal to 0. So, i-isolate natin si P6. Becomes now, P6 is equal to minus 3/5 of F3 minus F5. Yan ang kailangan natin. Now let's look at node 5. Si node 5, support yan. Pero meron siyang displacement along X direction. Okay? So, kailangan pa rin natin ng free body diagram. Isa lang. Along X lang. Okay? So, at node 5, meron tayong P7, and then we have F7, tapos this is F, that is F6, but we have to convert this to its vertical and horizontal component. And this is 1 all over square root of 2 F6. This is 1 all over square root of 2 F6. Okay, so summation forces vertical equal to 0, taking upwards as positive. So, meron tayong 1 all over square root of 2 F6 plus what? Okay? wala na siyang kakontra. Walang kukontra kay 1 all over square root of 6. So, we can disregard this. Okay, so disregard. But actually, 1 all over square root over 2 f6 is actually equal to reaction vertical at node 5. Okay, this is FBD number 5. So that is actually vertical reaction at node 5. Yan, okay? Reaction vertical node 5. But we will not consider that in the equation. So disregard muna. Next, summation forces horizontal is equal to 0. So P7 minus F7 is equal to 0. Oops, nakalimutan natin yun. Ano? Minus 1 all over square root of 2 F6 is equal to 0. Okay, so isolate natin. P7 is equal to 1 all over square root of 2 F6 plus F7. Okay, again, remember na dito sa forces, ang unahin mo yung lowest subscript niya, no? F6 and then F7. So, ito ang ating kailangan na equation. So, going back to our figure, ang ating displacements ay P1, P2, P3, P4, P5, P6, and we have P7. Okay, so hanggang P7 ang last displacement. Yan. Okay, so P1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I-arrange natin siya pababa. So from free body of joint 2, P1 is equal to negative 4/5 of F3 minus F4. So P1 is equal to negative 4/5 F3 minus F4. Next, we have P2. Okay? P2 is equal to F1 plus 3/5 of F3. Next, putan tayo dito sa free body of joint 3 or node 3 dahil nandito si P3. Okay? So, P3 is equal to F4, okay, katapat nito. Ayan. So, P3 is, ito siya, no? P3 is equal to F4 minus 1 all over square root of F6. Ito, P3 is equal to F4 minus 1 all over square root of F2, F6. Merong sikreto sa pag-arrange nitong or sa pag-assemble nitong linear system. Okay, so, paano yung technique dito? Unang-una, kailangan magkakatapat yan. So, lagyan ko ng line dyan. Then, maglagay ako ng line dito. Tapos, ayan, ano? Next is, pagtatapat-tapatin natin ngayon si F1, okay? So, lagay ako ng line dito. Then, this is about F2, tapos F3, F4, F5, F6, finally F7. Next, punta na tayo ngayon kay P4. So, si P4, that is F5 plus 1 all over square root of 2F6. Ayan. So, si P4 is F5. Nandito siya. F5 plus 1 half or 1 all over square root of 2 F6. Next, dito na tayo sa free body of joint 4. Kukunin natin si P5 tsaka si P6. So, gagawa lang ako ng line dito tsaka kay P6 tsaka kay P7. Okay? So, P5, you have here F2 dito. And then, 4/5 of F3. Tapos, minus F7. So, dito, minus F7. Next, kay P6 naman, we have 3/5 negative 3/5 of F3 minus F5. Lastly, we have free body at joint 5 for our P7. So P7 is 1 square root over 2, 1 all over square root of 2 times F6 plus F7. Okay? So, yan ang ating matrix. Okay, matrix algebra na tayo ngayon, ha? Okay, so let's continue. So, mapapansin nyo, yung negative, inilagay ko yung sign nung minus doon, yung negative. Kapag positive or plus, pwede mo nang tanggalin. So, tanggalin ko na yan, plus, tanggalin ko na rin yung plus dito. Huwag mong papakilaman yung mga negative. Okay? And then, this one. Next is, pakita ko lang itong part 3, solution of linear system, dahil ito yung isesend ko na notes sa inyo, no? And then, ito nandito sa whiteboard, i-erase ko na ito mamaya. So, pakita ko lang yung kanilang similarity. So, ito yung P1, ano? This is P1, which is ito. P1 is equal to negative 4/5 minus F4, which is this one. First equation pertains to P1. Your second equation pertains to P2, which is ito. So, that is F1 plus 3/5 of F3. Ayan, no? F1 plus 3/5 of F3. Yung mga blanco-blanco dito, ginawa ko ng 0. Okay? Also notice na lahat ng forces nasa kanya-kanyang respective column. So, this column pertains to F1. The second column pertains to F2. And then, the third column is F3. Fourth is F4, so forth and so on until the last column 7 pertains to F7, which is basically ito, no? Next is, we will now assemble your A matrix. Okay? Yung A matrix, this time, tinanggal na natin yung mga letter F tsaka yung kanyang mga subscript. Ang ipapasok na lang natin sa A matrix, yung mga constants. Okay, so, for your F1 column, ito yon, ano? So, we have here 0, and then 1, then 0, 0, 0, 0, 0 na lahat yan. Yan. Ito siya, okay? 0, 1, then all zeros. Going to the second column, lahat yan. So, copy mo lang yung mga constants. So, we have 0, 0, 0, 0, and then 1 here. Okay? Dahil merong 1 yan. Then, 0, 0. Ito siya. Okay? Now, for the third column, you just copy the constants of your third column here. Okay? So, we have negative 4/5 and then 3/5. Ito yon. Followed by dalawang 0, which is this. Followed by 4/5 and negative 3/5. Ayan. Followed by 0. And then, for the fourth column, or pertaining to F4, we have negative 1, 0, and 1. Ayan, negative 1, 0, 1. And then, for the fifth column, tatlong 0, followed by 1. Ayan. So, we have 3 zeros followed by 1, 0, negative 1, 0. Ito, no? And then, for the sixth column, you have 2 zeros, followed by negative 1 all over square root of 2, and then positive 1 all over square root of 2. Ito siya. Followed by 2 zeros, and then 1 all over square root of 2, which is this. Finally, for your seventh column, which pertains to F7, you have 4 zeros. 0, 0, 0, 0, negative 1, 0, and 1. Negative 1, 0, and 1. So that is your A matrix. Kailangan natin to dahil sosolvin natin yan using Excel. Okay, let's continue with our matrix. And then yung force matrix mo naman, it is simply your column of forces. F1, F2, F3, F4, 5, 6, 7. Ganyan lang kasimple yan. No? And then followed by your P matrix. Ito naman yung P1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay? Which is ito. Yan. Nasa left. Lahat ng left members. Ito yan. Okay? But, remember na your P forces corresponds to your loads. Okay, so balik tayo sa ating figure, tapos yung nasa part 1. Okay. Okay, ito yung ating P matrix. Sa P1, ito siya. Ano ang katumbas niya na load? Horizontal at joint 2. You look at joint 2, meron bang horizontal load? Ayun, positive 5, no? Dahil directed towards the right. Kaya naglagay ako ng 5 dun. Next, P2. Ano yung load sa P2? Meron ba? Ayan, 30. But it is downwards, kaya naglagay ako ng negative 30 dito. And then, for P3, meron bang horizontal load sa node 3? Wala, kaya naging 0 yon. And then for P4, meron bang vertical load sa node 3? Meron, yan. 30 pababa, kaya naging negative 30 yan. Sa P5 naman, meron ba? Walang horizontal load. Pero sa P6, merong vertical load which is 20 na pababa, kaya negative 20 yan, no? And finally, dito sa P7, walang load, kaya 0 lang. So, ang P matrix is actually your load matrix. So, in short, you can have the same figure but with different loadings. Okay? Pwede akong maglagay dito sa 3, tanggalin ko yung load dito sa P2, things like those. Maglagay ako ng 100 dito or negative 100, things like those. Kapag papalitan mo yan, magpapalit din yung mga forces dito sa members 1 to 7. Okay? So, ang importanteng ilalagay natin sa Excel is yung A matrix, which is this, tsaka yung load matrix, which is, ayan. Kapag in-inverse mo tong A, then you multiply it with your load matrix, you can easily solve the force matrix. Okay? Take note that this is F or your forces, axial forces. Mapapansin nyo na dito sa axial forces, diretso na siya na resultant. For example, yung F3. Okay? Hindi mo na kailangang mag square root pa or square. Diretso na siya, no? But before inputting this to Excel, ilagyan ko lang ng review yung matrix algebra. So let's take a simple linear system with 3 unknowns, 3 equations, no? So 3 unknowns, yan yung F1, F2, and F3. And then you have 3 equations. Equation 1 for P1, equation 2 for P2, and equation 3 for P3. So, i-assemble natin yung A matrix. So, we have 1/3, 2, and then negative 1/4. Ito yun, ano? And then, we have negative 2, 1/5, and then negative 3. Followed by, dito na, that is 1/4, then negative 1/2, and then positive 1/2. Ito siya. And then we have our, let's say, yung loads, ano? P1, let's say, P1 is negative 10, and then P2, negative 7, and then P3 is negative 13.75. So, our F matrix is simply F1, F2, and F3, followed by our P matrix or yung loads. You have negative 10, negative 7, tsaka negative 13.75. Okay, so remember that. So, you can say that your P matrix, okay, is equal to your A matrix multiplied by your F matrix. Okay? So, yung P, ito yung P1, P2, P3. Tapos, yung A matrix, ito yung constants or coefficients. Tapos, yung F matrix, that pertains to your F1, F2, F3. So, ito yung linear system equation mo. Or, you can say that A multiplied by F is equal to your P. Okay? Next, from this equation, let us divide both sides. Ano? So, let's say AF is equal to P. Now, let's divide both sides by A. So, your F now becomes A raised to negative 1 multiplied by P. Ngayon, notice na F is unknown. Yan yung kailangan nating solvein, yung forces. F1, F2, F3. Yung A, eto yon. Pero kailangan natin siyang i-inverse. Tapos, yung P matrix, eto yan. given na yan. So, all we have to do now is to solve your A inverse, or A to the negative 1. And then you multiply that by your loads, you can solve for F. Ngayon, ipapasok na natin yan sa Excel. Okay, so i-adjust ko lang ito para makita na malaki. And then, box ko lang yan. So, let's take this as A. And then, pasok natin yung ating A matrix. This is 1/3. Oops. So, undo ko lang. Palitan ko yan ng number. Let's try, no? So, let's take this as equal sign 1/3. Next, we have here -2, followed by equal sign 1/4, and then 2, tapos equal sign 1/5, tapos equal -1/2, and then -1/4, tapos -3, then 1/2. Ayun, pwede pala yan. Let's try here, 1/3. Okay, kataon, pwede pala. Let's check. So, i-highlight ko lang yan. Palitan ko ito ng fraction. Yan, pwede pala yan. Tapos, center align. Okay, so 1/3, check, no? 1/3, -2, 1/4, 2, 1/5, -1/2, -1/4, -3, 1/2. Next is, pasok natin ngayon yung, ating P matrix, okay? Dito naman, so, box ko lang yan. We have -10, -7, -13.75. Next, kukunin natin ngayon yung inverse ng A matrix. Okay? So, to do that, ulitin ko lang yan para makita nyo. Sulat ko lang ito, A -1. Highlight ko yan. Format cell. Superscript. Yan. Okay, so gumawa ko ng 3x3 na box. Ayan. Tapos, punta ko dito sa first box. I will type here equal sign M inverse, open parenthesis, tapos you click yan. And then, close parenthesis. Then, you press enter. Okay? Next, from here, you highlight, pupunta riyan sa destination cells niya. Okay, hin-highlight ko lang yan. Tapos, i-press F2. And then, you press, oops, again. Pag sabay-sabayin mong pindutin si Control, Shift, tsaka si Enter. Yan. Ito na ngayon yung inverse. Next is so na-solve na natin yung A inverse, no? I-multiply na natin ngayon si A inverse tsaka si P. Okay, balik tayo kay Excel. Para ma-solve natin si F. Okay, so here, let's say F is equal to, copy ko lang yan. F is equal to A inverse times P. Okay, ganyan. Dapat dito pupunta yan, no? Sa cells na yan. Okay, so here's the procedure. Pumunta ka dito sa first cell. This is, negative 12.25. Okay? So, palitan ko lang yan. So, this becomes now negative 12.25. Tapos, yan. Okay. So, going back, equal sign, and then M, open parenthesis, comma, then highlight this P matrix, close parenthesis, and then enter. Then finally, highlight this, you press F2, then Control Shift Enter. Yan ang forces mo, negative 3, 5, and 4. Meaning, your F1 is negative 3, F2 is 5, F3 is 4. Okay? So, finally, your F is equal to negative 3, 5, and 4. So let's check, no? Negative 3, 5, and 4. Using equation 1. It says here na P1 from equation 1, ano? P1 is equal to 1/3 times the quantity negative 2 plus 1/4 of F3. This should give you negative 10. Ano yung, remember na F is negative 3, 5, and 4. Ibig sabihin yan would be F1, F2, and F3. Okay, so yan. Or, F1 is equal to negative 3, F2 is 5, and F3 is 4. Okay, so remember that. So we substitute 1/3 of F1, that is negative 3, tapos negative 2 of F2, negative 2 of F2, 5 dyan, tapos F3 is 4. Now you solve that. 1/3 times negative 3, this will give you negative 1 minus 10 plus 1 is negative 10. Okay? Which is basically the same. Okay? So that's how you solve your forces. Ngayon, babalik na tayo sa problem. So, ang ating matrix A, going back to the problem, our matrix A is a 7 by 7 matrix. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So, magbabox ako ng 7 by 7. Yan, okay? So, we have here 7 columns and then 7 rows. Tapos, ipapasok ko na. All I have to do is to copy these numbers. So, pababa, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Palitan ko lang yan ng general. Ayan. Okay? So, palitan ko yung kanyang format ng general. Tapos, center align. Next, dito na ako sa second column. 0. Then, 1, 0, 0. Next, eto na. So, that is negative 4 all over 5. Tapos, 3 divided by 5. Oops. Kapag ganyan, palitan mo lang yan ng general ulit. So, that is 3 over 5. Control Z. Or you just type there equals 3 divided by 5. Yan. Next is 0, 0. Let's try. 4 slash 5. Yun. Papalit siya, no? So, undo ko lang yan. Gagamit ako ng equal sign na 4 over 5. Yan. Remember that, okay? And then, negative 3 over 5. Dito na. Finally, 0. Next, dito na ako sa fourth column. Dito na. Yan. Negative 1, 0, 1, tapos 0, 0 na lahat. Followed by this column. Fifth column na tayo, no? 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, negative 1, and 0. Next, you have 0, 0, negative 1 all over SQRT, open parenthesis 2. Ayan. Oops, I forgot yun. Lalagay ka ng equal sign doon, ano? Next is equal sign 1 all over SQRT, open parenthesis 2, and then close. SQRT means square root. Then 0, 0, and then pwede mo nang i-copy yan. Okay? Tapos dito naman sa last column, 0, 0, 0, 0, negative 1, 0, negative 1. Now, this is my A matrix. Tapos, pwede ko nang solving ngayon yung aking A inverse. Okay, so A inverse. Then, format cell, superscript. Tapos, gawa ako ng 7 by 7 na box. Makikita mo yung size ng box dito, ano? Yan, dyan sa part na yan. Ulit. So, highlight ko lang. Yan. Papansin mo dito update yung kanyang size. Then, yan. Markan ko lang yon. Ito yon. Minarkan ko lang para mag-margin siya. Next is, punta ko dito sa first cell. I will write there equal sign M inverse. Open parenthesis. You highlight all the entries in your A matrix, then close parenthesis. Next, you highlight your destination cells. Yan. Tapos, you press F2, then Control Shift Enter. Yan ngayon yung inverse mo. Adjust ko lang yan. Next, ipasok natin si P matrix. Okay, so P is a 1 by 7 matrix. And that is, ito, pasok ko lang yan. So 5, negative 30, 0, negative 30, 0, negative 20, then 0. Next is your force matrix is also a 1 by 7 matrix. So equal sign M inverse, M matrix multiplication. You first highlight your inverse, yung A inverse, no? Comma, then your load matrix. Tapos, ulit. So, dyan sa first cell, equal sign, M mult, open parenthesis, you highlight your inverse, comma, then you highlight your load matrix, then close, then you press enter. Next is, you highlight your first cell here, hanggang dyan sa baba, then you press F2, then Control Shift Enter. That is your forces. Now let's compare with the problem, no? So going back, yeah. So your force now is negative 49.29, which is parehas. Highlight ko lang yan. Click ko ito para maging 2 decimal places. Ayan. Oops. Minus 30.71. Wala. Bakit ito? Okay guys, so trinace back ko, dito ako nagkamali. Ayan. So this is positive F7. So dapat positive 1 yan. So notice na kapag sa Excel nagpalit ka ng number, automatic nagpapalit din yung result. See? So, nagpalit yung inverse, nagpalit din yung forces mo. Okay, so let's check. Ayan. So, tumama na. 49, 5, 32.14, minus 30.71, 0.71 minus 43, and 30.71. Okay, so that's how you solve your forces. Next is going back here. Negative 49, this is F1, 5 is F2, 32.14 is F3. Okay, going back to our figure, your member 1 corresponds to F1. Member 2 corresponds to F2. Member 3 corresponds to F3. Ganun lang kasimple yan, ano? Member 6 corresponds to F6. Okay, so remember that. I will just split here. And then, ayan. Okay. Ayan. Mas malapit konti. Okay, so mapansin nyo yan. Yung member 1 corresponds to F1, which is negative 49.21. Ayan. Naglagay na ako doon ng 49.29. Tapos, naglagay ako ng arrow. So, may significance yung arrow na yan, ano? Next, sa member 2 is 5. Okay? Ayan. 5. Naglagay ako ng arrow. So, kapag positive, that means your arrow is away from the node. Kapag negative, your arrow is, ito, negative 49.29, ano? Your arrow is towards the node. Okay? Remember, if positive, arrow is going away from the node. Next, punta tayo sa F3. Dito. So, that is F3, 32.14. Ito siya. It is positive, meaning your arrow is going away from the node. Anong ibig sabihin ng arrow out? That is simply tension, okay? So, positive means tension, negative means compression. Next, member 4, dito sa taas. Member 4 corresponds to force F4, negative 30.71, ayan siya, negative. So, that means compression, or your arrow is towards the node. Next, member 5 dito, or that is 0.71. Yan. And then member 6 is 45.44. Compression. Member 7 is 30.71. Tension. Okay. But we're not done yet. Kailangan alam din natin yung reactions, ano? And then, mag-check din tayo. So, going back to joint 2. So, this time, dito sa ating check, i-consider na natin yung mga loads tapos yung forces. Remember that at joint 2, meron tayong 30 na pababa. Tapos meron tayong 5 kN positive X. Ito yun, ano? 30 tsaka yung 5. Tapos, yung ating F4. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 30.71 negative. So, that means compression. Ayan. 30.71 compression. Your arrow is towards the node. Tapos, yung F3. Okay. Remember that F3 is 32.14. Pero, kailangan natin yung components. So, that is 4/5 of F3. Ayan, 4/5 of 32.14. Ayan, no? And it is positive, or that is tension or away from the node, away to the node. Next, you have downwards na 3/5 of F3. Ayan, 3/5 of F3. So from there, you can check, you can repeat your summation forces horizontal equal to 0. Ayan. So that is ito. Kahit wag mo nang tingnan ito dito ka na mag-solve, no? Ito ng basis mo. Summation horizontal equal to 0. So 5 is positive plus 4/5 of 32.14. Ayan. Minus 30.71 equal to 0. So 0 equal to 0. Next, summation forces vertical equal to 0. Upwards is positive. Ayan. 49.29 minus 30 minus 3/5 of 32.14 equal to 0. So 0 equal to 0. So that's how to check. Now let's solve for the reactions at joints 1 and 5. So punta tayo ngayon sa joint 1. Ayan. So sa joint 1, ang forces sa joint 1, you have force 1 and force 2. Okay. So force 1, or that is F1, 49.21, that is negative, meaning compression, or your arrow is towards the joint. Tapos yung F2 naman, that is 5, that is positive or tension, or your arrow is going away. Okay? And then you have your reactions. So, summation forces vertical equal to 0. 49.29 is negative plus RV1 equal to 0. So, you can say that your reaction vertical at node 1 is equal to 49.29. Likewise, your horizontal reaction is simply equal to 5. Next, punta tayo ngayon sa node 5 or joint 5. Sa joint 5, kailangan mo yung force 7 tsaka yung horizontal and vertical component of force 6, which is this. Okay? So, summation forces vertical, your reaction vertical is equal to 1 all over square root of 2 times 43.44. And summation forces horizontal equal to 0. Mapapansin nyo dyan na wala tayong horizontal reaction. Pero, meron tayong F7 tsaka horizontal component nung F6. Dapat magkakancel yung F7 tsaka yung horizontal component ng F6 since this is a roller sport, which happens to be this. Okay? 0 equal to 0. So, that's it guys.